Here we go.
Here we go.
I hope to God this works because sometimes it doesn't start until you need it to start. But either way, we are here and we will start. Welcome back to Praha, Mr. Grannon.
Thank you, sir. It's good to be back.
How's it feel?
Good, man. It's nice. It's nice being back here. I love Prague.
Yes, and no matter where you are in the world, you're going to be exposed to the same amount of information, to the same kind of information, all from the same place.
That's true. That's true. The homogenization of culture continues apace.
How do you feel about that?
I'm not sure that it's a very good thing. I suspect we're probably deep in the backlash of homogenized and globalized culture, and that there will be a push now in the other direction. Now that we realise that we're sick because of it and the exposure to it, I think we're going to start pushing back the other way.
Yeah, I definitely already see that because we're planning on watching. But we're going to be talking about two Netflix things today in a weird way. One of them is a social media documentary called Social Dilemma.
Which we're watching tonight, right?
Watching that tonight. We haven't seen it yet. And then obviously the other one that's making headlines all over the world? Not all over the world, but big discussions within the West. That's called Cuties. It involves a bunch of underage girls displaying some really, really suggestive behaviors as really, really uncomfortable to even talk about, let alone watch.
So we're probably not going to watch that.
Fuck no. Dude, okay. I understand. Actually, this is a great segue to the very first premise of a situation like this. In something like this, are you required to watch 2 hours of the whole thing before you discuss anything about it?
I was going to watch it until somebody sent me a link today where the guy gave a review of it, and I had thought that the problem was just the poster, the hypersexualized poster, and that the furore and the controversy was just about the poster. But when I actually heard a verbal description of some of the scenes in the film, I was like, it's not just about the poster, man. There's obviously a lot going on there. And I'd rather not.
Yes. There are obvious scenes. I understand that they're taken out of context, but even without the context, what is being displayed by legitimately underage girls is extremely hard to watch and disgusting. There's a whole 2-minute dance scene, the finale, where they're dancing in a group and they're literally twerking, humping the floor, touching each other, crotch zooms, body zooms, panning shots of just like really disgusting things, man.
The guy I listened to, who actually sounded like a paedophile, he said that in that last scene, there's shots of 11-year-olds bending over with their hands reaching up and through to touch their own crotches, and you see that shot from behind, and I'm just like, you know what? Even in the efforts of wanting to do the stuff that's on topic for like internet discussion, I maybe could just do without that shit inside my fucking brain.
Yeah, it's like, you need to watch the whole thing. Great, I want to kill myself.
Yeah.
But that's what it's supposed to make you feel. Dude!
Yeah.
Can we all just agree that it's bad and I don't need...
Can't we just agree as adults that this is not what we should be doing?
Do we really need to watch the whole fucking thing to understand the context of how bad this situation is?
There's an interesting problem here, isn't there? I said to you off camera, there's a Serbian movie called Clip, and it's all about becoming disassociated. It's from 2012. These kids, young Serbian kids, they look like 16, 17 or 18, are filming themselves having sex, and it's the disassociation of intimacy in the sexual act because they're consuming their own pornography that they made. And I wanted to talk about it on my channel, and then I found out when the girl was filming it, she was 14 years old. And you just think, okay, when people make art and they say, we're not advocating for this, we're actually condemning it, we're trying to critique it, does that give you the right to make material that is what you're trying to critique? That doesn't seem to be a get-out clause to me. That doesn't seem to be a valid get-out clause to me at all.
the biggest thing is that it involves kids, and kids don't realize the impact of what they're doing, whether it's their parents' choice to like put them in the film. They don't realize like moving like that at that age could be as terrible as what the actual circumstances are. God knows what's going to happen to these girls once they get out of the film as well. Like, fuck, if you want to make your own slasher films with all the violence and gore, and everybody's adults and they want to be a part of the film, and then they're all consensually adults that know the repercussions of something like that, that's fine. But when you start throwing literally 11-year-old girls into the mix and have them be your puppet to display how bad it is, I think that's my line, you know?
Yeah. It's a tricky one because you don't want to be pro-censorship, but you do want to be pro-decency, and you don't want to be pro-sanity.
Yeah.
Like, is there a context where adults should be instructing children, 11 years old, to twerk? I don't know that there is. I don't know that there is a valid context.
Yes.
Even if you're saying this is terrible, children shouldn't be... if this is terrible, children shouldn't be sexualized like this. You just go, no, you don't need to do the like this. We've all got an imagination.
So if we take that concept to the fullest extent, it's like, imagine doing that in person. Imagine like a fucking counselor, a speaker goes to a school,
right?
Goes into elementary school, and at the very guys, I know you're all going through puberty right now, but anybody want to volunteer for this demonstration? This, and then the guy tells him to do this. Like, hey, Susie, do this. You guys should not do that.
Here's a line of coke, right? Snort this.
Yeah.
Now, don't do that with that line of coke. Never. Don't drink this alcohol. Don't snort this line of coke.
And
the
defending side of that is like, no, you have to watch it first before you judge. You have to watch them go about it. You have to watch the whole thing.
So this is okay. Now I got it. It's moral relativism at work, isn't it? This is postmodern social deconstructionist moral relativism at work, because we can have a moral boundary that just says, don't do that with kids. Don't sexualize children. You don't need to demonstrate. I mean, okay, so...
You know what's a good example of this that works well? Requiem for a Dream. You know that movie?
I do.
It's they use that soundtrack for every anime collage, every like the whole minute.
Yeah.
And basically the movie is showcasing the story of maybe like 4 drug users.
Okay.
And the downward spiral that comes with it. And I've only watched it once and I'll never watch it again.
I've not seen it.
No, it's fucking brutal.
Okay.
And I will say, in that example, it's a great representation of displaying how terrible drug use plays out when you abuse it.
Right.
You know, there's scenes where like an older lady gets hooked on pharmaceuticals. There's one where like partiers just start off having fun and then it takes over their life.
Yeah.
Then you have a girl that just gets thrown into legal prostitution, but like trafficking almost.
Yes.
I think in that case, it's done well. It makes sense. But then again, there's no kids involved in the situation.
But okay, so there's a thing here. It's the stretching the upper limits of my intellect to say this. There's a crossing the boundary between the real and the representation. Some Lacanian will be able to tell us what's happened here and what's gone wrong. If I make a film where... So I was going to say Schindler's List. Steven Spielberg, a Jewish director, makes Schindler's List. It's extremely graphic in some of the scenes. The casual assassination of Jews. Have you seen Schindler's List? There's you remember the very famous photo of a Vietnamese guy being shot in the brain.
Yeah.
So they actually do that a couple of times in the film, and it's a 15 rated film. It's pretty hard to watch, and there's a lot of scenes in there very, very tough to watch. But these are adults and children on screen acting the symbolic representation of a crime. They're not committing the crime. In this film, that's actually a crime. It's not. They're actually doing the thing that is illegal to do.
Yes.
Right.
So
there you go.
Yeah.
I hurt my
nice.
fucking brain getting
nice.
that out.
Nice.
God
Nice.
damn.
That was good.
I just dropped 2 IQ points.
To further prove what you're saying, you can fake a gunshot. Fake gun, fake blood.
Yeah.
You know, it's obviously no one's actually killed.
Right.
And if that happened, fuck that film. Somebody actually
That's
died
a snuff
on
movie.
film.
That's a yeah.
You can't just. I mean, you can, but in this case, faking an actual underage girl, zooming in on her body and making her move like that. You can fake by, maybe having an adult actor maybe do it, or like in that way. But they actually used underage girls and having them legitimately move in that way, and it displays it without no symbolic representation there.
I don't know how these things get certificated. I don't know. With Clip, I don't know how that got certificated. There are close-up shots of the girl in Clip giving a blowjob. Okay, it looks like a prosthetic dick that she's doing it to, but she's 14. Now, isn't that classed as paedophile? Am I wrong? Shouldn't that be classed as paedophile porn?
Yeah.
And you could say this art house film went a little too far. Nobody really knows about it. Nobody saw it. We couldn't give it a certificate, or we had to chop the scenes. They left the scenes in, and then they rated it. I'm like, how are you rating? Well, where's the law? How's that figured out? And do we need it? That film would have easily worked with a 19-year-old pretending to be 16.
And that branches into the territory of the cultural law differences between America and Europe, because I think Europe has a reputation of really representing certain things in a different way that the American audiences would just absolutely despise. And I understand that, and I honestly think that it does. It's right, because I think within the States there's this weird dissonance when it comes to what can be shown on camera. We murder everybody in the film all the time. You show a boob here and there in America, people freak out. So I get it. I mean, I don't like the States for that reason. Don't get me wrong, but I do have a line, and this movie is a great example of where that line is for me.
Okay, I know you've watched more criticism videos of this than I have. Is the point of the film that this is wrong? Is the film condemning the sexualization?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So it is. So they would be able to claim a defense, which is, no, we're not advocating for it. We're saying don't do it.
Yes.
So you do it to say don't do it.
Yes.
I mean, it's literally what you said about the teacher coming into the school and giving a line of coke there.
So you want to hear some more context of this whole thing, because I made a few videos on this, so I did some research. So
you've got more of this shit in your head than I do.
I didn't even want to fucking talk about this, dude. I've made 2 videos. I've done more than enough research. I don't want to watch the film anymore, guys. But I can still have an opinion on it. I'm sorry, but it's the conceptual opinion of the overarching concept. So anyways, so the director is a Black African French woman.
Okay.
Who is trying to display her, what she went through during her upbringing and getting, exposed to these things at an early age and all the pressures that come with it.
Okay.
Right? Then you have, I think, just a white French dude as the producer, and apparently, their whole casting team made, I think, 500 to 600 girls audition over a span of 6 to 8 months. And
what the fuck are you telling me?
It gets even better. You ready for this? A line from the producer himself said, "Oh my God, it was such a long, hard, arduous process, and it was only until the last 10 auditions was when we finally found who we wanted to cast."
Jesus fucking Christ, that's creepy as shit.
So, you're telling me, first of all, how often do you see 600 people? If you sit at the park every day for a month, you wouldn't even really run into 600 people. They saw specifically 600 underage girls and made them do the same twerky dance routine and watched it through. And you're telling me out of those 600, it was the last 10 that you said, "Oh, they're the ones."
See, this is where the right-wing conspiracy theory nutcases who are ranting about paedophilia in Hollywood, how do they not have a fucking point? How can you not say that is a pervert, a psychopath paedophile, flagrantly just displaying the fact that they have the power to do that? You don't a casting of 600 people for any role. That's insane.
For any role.
That's insane.
And I didn't think about this till after. You know what they do with auditions? They film them.
They film it. That's what I was going to ask you. Where's all that footage now? Where's all that fucking footage? That's
Epstein's Island, man.
Yeah, that's probably where the money was made.
Contextually, with the environment right now, Epstein literally is convicted on paper for trafficking underage girls. So timing on that is like, okay, so you're going to do that while this is all happening as well. And then you have all these conspiracy theories about the child PD stuff. And I'm like, okay, so then you're going to still go about this audition tape, follow throughout the movie. And the funny thing about all of this is apparently it won some Sundance Film Festival awards. Did you know that the co-founder... Did you know that the co-founder just got arrested for sexual assault with a minor?
So, okay. I remember years ago, like 2013, 2014, a friend of mine who's worked as a therapist for childhood sexual abuse for years, and she was saying, just about the UK, she said, paedophile rings are huge in the UK, most of our politicians are involved in it, and I was like, get the fuck out of here with your, right-wing nut job conspiracy
I thought
theories.
the same.
But the last 2 years or so was, we both had a look at the Pizzagate thing, and that was hard fucking graft.
Like, that's still questionable, the pizza stuff, but Epstein is real. The flight logs are real. Those things are real.
I was left pretty convinced by the emails from Pizzagate. Like, you don't talk like that about actual pizza.
Yeah.
Pizza ain't pizza.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was leaning at. I was like, what?
Nah.
Yeah. There's so many questionable things. But regardless, the stuff does exist.
So hard data, they definitely went through the arduous task of looking at 600 girls, acting like adults and acting like hypersexual adults.
And those are actual underage bodies on camera doing those things. They're not fake. They didn't use body double. They didn't do it. It's actually that.
These are psychopaths then. These are psychopaths. They're flagrantly parading their power and liberty to do it. Yeah. They're going, look at what we did. None of you can stop us because it's in the name of art. And in the name of art, we can do anything.
Yeah.
That is... What a disgrace that nobody in power, that the French police, the French government, nobody has stepped in and said... You fucking can't do this. And it doesn't matter who's making the film. Fuck the identity politics. The same argument was brought up for the Serbian movie Clip. It was made by a woman. She's talking about her childhood in Serbia. But it doesn't matter. It's still It's still criminal. The
actual act.
The actress is underage and you're filming a performing sex act. Yes, it's simulated, but I wish I was brighter with the philosophy. There's a Lacanian and I think a Hegelian point where it's the thing itself that functions as wank material for paedophiles.
Yeah, and so that shit's getting shared all over the place.
Fuck, man, you can't at that point sign me up with the right wing nut jobs then because that's not a conspiracy theory. That's actually happened, and that is child exploitation, and it is the production of paedophile pornographic material, no doubt.
Yeah,
no doubt. You can't question that. There's no way that they.
You can question the hard footage that's actually there and the 600 audition tapes.
You can't.
For the greater good. The fuck out of here! Get the fuck out of here, dude.
No.
Get the fuck 600 audition tapes plus the end film, and how many takes of that? How many fucking takes in the end shot? Do you know how long it takes to film a movie? How many shots they have to retake, and then the editing room. I edit videos. I edit an absurd amount of videos, and I know how many times you have to go over clips. Okay, so the reason why I brought up the initial identity politics race thing earlier, because I think it actually does matter here. Okay, but first of all, I'm going to first bring up, let's give the director the benefit of the doubt and say, good intentions. This is on paper, maybe before things started actually getting shot. she wanted to make commentary about her own childhood upbringing and actually condemn all these behaviors. Maybe she had good intentions, and maybe in her head it played out with good intentions. Do you know how many people are a part of a film? Do you think all of those people have the same good intentions? Or did they look at the fucking script like the co-founder of the Sundance Festival and be like, oh, yes, child trafficking is bad. Maybe we can actually show it. We should show them. I'll be the casting director. I can totally pick out of the 600. Either way, if you have that many people involved, whatever, the director could have good intentions. Maybe the other people won't.
Yeah. And do you believe anybody's that naive?
No.
So do you personally believe that this was done with good intentions and out of naivety a mistake was made?
It could be, maybe from the directors and maybe a few others, maybe. Like okay, for example, if you read this whole thing as a book, it could be a bit more acceptable because it's still just trying to describe a plot.
No, as a book it's fine.
Yeah.
As a book, literally nobody is damaged except for imaginary characters.
Right, and the plot is even stronger. The conceptual points, the thesis of the film is even stronger in a book.
And you would be able to tell by the way the book was written whether this was for titillation and excitement or was a description of there are crime books out there that do describe scenes that are performed by criminals. Yeah. I'm sure there must be. I know that there was the book The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, where they were describing women being trafficked and prostitution and such. You would be able to know by the way it was written whether it was for titillation or not. This is the thing itself. This is the actual image. Even if you showed an 11-year-old girl dancing and then you cut to a shot of her reaching through and touching herself and it was actually a 21-year-old girl, it's still the thing itself. Yeah. Because it still functions as masturbational material.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And
you're still saying you're still kind of there's a tacit agreement for you as the viewer to find this arousing.
Right. Yeah. And go watch the whole film before you make an opinion.
Right, yeah. So, fuck that.
Okay. First of all, anybody who uses that as an argument for this type of content in the display, you want Cuties you want Cuties watch parties. Okay, just thought experiment. Me and Richard alone in a hotel room, we put on Cuties together because we have to watch it before we make an opinion. With that fucking thesis, that argument, sorry, I'm being very aggressive because I'm very passionate about this. So you want Cuties watch parties with grown-ass men and you want them to watch this? No. Because we should come up? Dude, imagine how many fucking people are using that as an excuse to watch the film now.
But there have been paedophiles who've been caught. I've read of 4 or 5 cases where policemen, various, were caught with paedophile material on their computers, and they said it's research for a novel.
Yeah,
it's research for a documentary. I'm like,
Yeah, exactly. And you're basically validating that point if you're using that argument. It's like, watch the whole thing before you make an opinion. Great. I'm going to go ahead and take a picture. I'm going to hold my own Cuties Netflix watch party. I'm going to invite a bunch of grown-ass men and women, and we're going to sit there together and watch this to prove your point of how terrible child abuse and trafficking and sexualization is. Dude, that is fucking irresponsible to point that out as a narrative. So many more people have watched this film now because of that argument. Watch the whole thing first because of your opinion for it. And how many of those people that you just forced to watch that film are actually a bit of PD or maybe were experimenting with it, then they saw it and it confirmed their sick desires.
That's what somebody sent me a clip of a YouTube video and it has 16 likes and 14,000 dislikes of a guy talking about it. And he was like, yeah, I was actually quite into it. I've watched it. So talking like a paedophile who's had a latent taste reaffirmed. Yeah. That's exactly how that's his review of the movie. I'll send you the link. I don't want to see it. Creepy as fuck.
I don't want to see any of this shit. I don't really even want to talk about it. I think it's fucking disgusting. And I don't want the narrative to say watch the whole thing to prove that it's disgusting. Guess what? No one's no one's going to end up with the same exact opinion that you're going to point out.
Well, they don't say that about snuff movies. They don't say, "Oh, I've got a snuff movie here. It's
yeah, watch the whole thing.
Yeah, some Russian soldiers being slowly beheaded with a blunt knife.
Yeah,
but don't judge it.
Yeah,
don't judge it until you've watched it from beginning to end.
That's what I thought.
No, I think you can judge it.
Yeah.
I think you can say, that's gross.
Yes.
Don't want to watch that.
Yes.
Don't want to watch people scream for their lives.
Right.
I'm good without it, thank you.
There's a lot of things where you should fully look at the data, look at the movie, look at the documentary. There are things that does make sense before you make an opinion and critique it. Something like this, is it really fucking necessary? Like, I remember, so D'Angelo Wallace just made a video on it, and he was saying, like, when I was watching the film, I got the concept, but the actual scenes where things happened was gratuitous, and it took me out of the film and didn't serve the purpose of the plot.
Well, I would trust his judgment on it.
Yeah, I've heard more of his opinions.
Yeah.
He's really into film analysis and just
Right.
shit like that in general.
Right.
And it took him out of it. So he also had another great point. I haven't seen the movie Precious either, so I can't speak too much of it. Do you know Precious?
I never watched it. It's under too rough for me, man.
Yeah, so basically, she's older. She was 20-something when the movie was filmed. She plays a 16-year-old. The parts that are supposedly like abusive and sexually abusive, they didn't show anything on camera, but he said that it also hits you harder when you see the plot line. And I think it's actually a great point that he's making in terms of artistic choice and having the artistic integrity and technical skill to make it hit harder without showing it.
Right.
So at that point, it's also a terrible artistic choice. Because if you are genuinely really talented at making art, you should be able to make the point hit even harder without making it overt. That's what good art is, actually.
Yeah. I agree. And I think if you take the meaning of the word pornography, that is what it means. It is gratuitous. It's there just for the sake of being there. And it doesn't always... There's a film called Nil by Mouth. It's a British movie that's also really hard to watch and features scenes of domestic abuse. But even the worst stuff that happens is like you see the argument build up and it's off screen and you hear the sound effects and it's fucking really disturbing. Yeah. But you don't actually need to see like you know as a human being the empathy is already there, the sense of what's occurring to another human being. You're easily traumatized enough
for sure.
without needing to actually see.
Even with the little amount of films that I have seen, even in like murder death scenes, like maybe a gangster shoots someone, that shit usually happens off camera, and you actually it impacts you even more in a way because it almost makes you focus on the character that's gone.
Yes.
But in the movies that I've seen the actual act being done, it hits way differently.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
It does.
Like not in a way that makes a bigger point, by the way. Like
no, it just hits different. It hits different. No Country for Old Men is like that. There's an important plot point which I won't spoil for people, but because it's the standard way a movie would be to show the scene, but in this movie they chose not to show it, and you kind of you actually feel it hits different.
I think it hits deeper when it's not directly shown gratuitously because it makes you focus on the concept that's happening. You know what I mean?
Is there a way of doing a movie about little girls twerking that you couldn't show little girls twerking?
Well, think about all the child trafficking documentaries that actually never show it and how hard that hits.
I would think if somebody came to me with the idea of a movie about little girls twerking and I was a studio going to fund it, I would just say, let's not make this film.
Yeah.
Let's just not make it. We don't rewrite the story, find another way of expressing how wrong it is to sexualize children. And how difficult because it's obviously it's autobiographical, how difficult your upbringing was without actually showing the thing itself. There's a disturbing trend here. I'm sure you'll have heard of it, where there's an effort to normalize paedophilia.
Yes.
There's an effort to. It's actually not a crime. It's a sexual preference, and the broader concern I have is we seem to be losing our sense well, we seem to be losing our fucking minds, but we seem to be losing our sense of protection. There are vulnerable people in society who need protecting. Women, for example. We used to protect women. No, we don't. They're being less protected. Children should be protected because they're vulnerable. No, now we're not going to protect them. And it's coming from the left. It's all coming from the left. This desire to erode the boundaries that we used to put around people who are vulnerable and need protecting.
We don't even protect men anymore either, though. There's just we don't protect fucking anybody. Let me ask you this, speaking of the subject, how do you think the film would go over if a man directed it?
I don't know now. I mean, 5 years ago I would have been confident in saying he would have been roundly condemned and blah, blah. But nowadays, I don't... So you'll have defenders of this movie. You'll have people who say you have to see it to understand the context. There was a time where nobody would have defended a movie like that. There's 100%, like, I'm sure 20 years ago, nobody would have said, yeah, this is okay. This is all right. They wouldn't have dared to do it because they would have feared the dogpiling and the social condemnation that everybody would have given them. Now there's this weird, cocky, cavalier attitude to it. It's like, no, we can do whatever we want. Literally whatever we want to do. All social norms are off. It's all deconstructionism. Everything, every boundary that was there, we're going to break it down. Because protection requires boundaries. It requires protectionism is effectively patriarchal. Well, everything that's patriarchal is wrong, and every boundary is wrong. So we'll just dissolve it all. Well, this is what we get: 11-year-olds twerking in a film that's then distributed by a platform like Netflix. Who funded the fucking film? That a director wanted to make it and a producer wanted to make it, there's always going to be nutters. But that a fucking studio funded it and then Netflix said, yeah, we'll put that out there is insane.
And let's give it an award too.
That's mind-numbing.
Yeah.
Mind-numbing.
Yeah, I personally think if it was a dude that directed it, we wouldn't even have this discussion.
Really?
I honestly think that if the context of who the director was different, particularly being a man, people would be like, this fucking Weinstein, Epstein hybrid.
Okay.
Like, are you serious? Like, the whole context of the film changes if it's a dude that makes the whole film. And it's like, there's a lot more leeway right now because it's not.
Isn't this Jordan Peterson's big point about the end result of identity politics? Like, I can do a thing as a 42-year-old white male. You can do a different thing. They can do a different... And the rules apply differently depending on your identity, your sexuality, and your level of oppression.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not for that. I'm definitely not for different rules for different people. That sounds like it's gonna create a lot of trouble.
People are gonna argue about this point more than the actual child sexualization, I feel, because people are so heavily charged with this subject.
Identity politics.
Yeah, and people are probably going to get angry at this segment more than the rest of it, but it's like, you can't, I honestly think you can't deny that hypothetical of like, if a dude did it, I don't know.
A white guy.
I will say though, yeah.
A middle-aged white guy.
Yeah, there you go.
Creepy looking with the paedophile specs and the weird beard.
Right.
I made this film about little girls.
I will say though, gross. I will.
But it should be even if a young.
That's what I mean.
It should be gross, even if it's a young. Is she young?
Yeah. I will say, the people that are defending it aren't that big. Majority are actually both condemning the film from each political party. You have a lot of people on the left, and you have a lot of people on the right.
Okay.
And it's a huge majority that says, fuck this film. Even in France.
Oh, even in France.
Even in
France.
France.
The French.
Yeah.
Well done. Vive la France.
Yeah. So again, the defenders aren't as big of a demographic as we're painting it out to be right now.
Okay, but that's a really interesting point, because then you have the people actually don't want it. So why do the people in power? Why do the people in positions of authority?
You want to know the Rotten Tomatoes dichotomy?
Go on.
Rotten Tomatoes critics, 87%
right,
positive.
Right.
2% rest of the people put thumbs down Rotten Tomatoes. So
that's always interesting to see, isn't
always.
it? The establishment is saying, yeah, it's good. And everybody who uses Rotten Tomatoes right? There's a Bond movie that came out called Skyfall. That was a piece of shit. It got 96% on Rotten Tomatoes. So they do that by aggregating the scores of the critiques. And they were like, 200 critics said this was a good movie, so it gets 96%. So I went through and read, and I was like, who the fuck says this is good? It's shit. I went through and read all the things that Rotten Tomatoes said were a good score. They weren't. A ton of them panned it.
Really?
But Rotten Tomatoes it's like voter fraud.
Yeah.
I'm like, who's paying you, Rotten Tomatoes, you bunch of cunts?
You know, the biggest point, back to one thing that we were just talking about, and it's sticking in my mind, because imagine with that narrative, watch the whole film, how comfortable would these people feel with Cuties watch parties? And then, because let's throw the identity situation, older white dudes, creepy, smelly, dusty, weird looking older dudes, just around the couch. Everybody told us that we should watch it before we judge.
All the right on people on YouTube told us we should watch this before we judge.
Yes.
Well done, guys.
Yeah, congratulations, you played yourself.
But, I mean, I used to work for the probation service. They gave me the drug addicts. And they said that we would never... did I tell this story already? They wouldn't let me work with paedophiles. And I said, why?
Oh, okay.
And they said, no male under the age of 35 we would ever let. Because if you sit opposite somebody and you read what they've done, our experience is that you'll
get violent.
You'll get violent.
I remember you told me that.
Yeah. So they said, there's just no way we would ever let you do that. I think we do need to have an open, sane, honest discussion, because it's there. And repressing it and going, right, this doesn't exist, it's not a problem, that's not healthy. We need to talk about it, but not do it. We can have the conversation without doing the thing we're talking about. There's actually, you reminded me before, and I forgot to say, there's a Monty Python sketch from The Meaning of Life where the teacher wants to educate the class on sex education. So he literally shags his wife.
Okay, there you go. See, that's exactly the example that I was trying to lean towards earlier.
This would be if he actually shagged one of the kids, though.
Yeah, but
that would be the comparative example.
But if we take that type of thing to its extreme, it's like, imagine it play out, not on the arena of social media, but play out in an actual physical setting. If you held a pep rally, auditorium thing, or in front of the classroom presentation, and then you brought up some underage girls and said this was bad, that changes the whole fucking vibe of the thing. The whole thing. You don't need to know that. You don't need to see that to know that it's fucking bad. Some things you just don't. I will say, again, a lot of other things, it's very appropriate to look at data. Actually look at the fucking content that you're absorbing before you make the opinion and criticism. This, outside of my box of what's acceptable.
Yeah, definitely. And as far as looking at data goes, it's like writing, it's like putting it in a book as opposed to making it a film. There's a big difference. And if you wanted to know what happens in snuff movies, you can aggregate the data from that and not actually watch the snuff movies. You don't need to do that.
Yes, right.
This comes back around to another controversial topic. Why don't we load them up? The way American police are trained. When you join the FBI, I don't know if it's still true, but they would make you listen to the toolbox murders, which is, this won't be graphic, but it's audio of somebody being tortured to death, a couple of people being tortured to death. And the psychology of that is, it's so you know what it's really like out there with the serial killers. And I'm like, you shouldn't do that with human beings.
No, no.
You don't need to make them listen to audio of somebody begging for death. You don't, and they're young as well. You don't need to do that. That's the FBI. Most American police, they are made to watch a video. It's a white guy shooting a white guy with a rifle on a traffic stop, and the cop who's shot is begging for his life. It's off camera. I've actually seen it. It's really disturbing. You don't need to traumatize people to make a point. It's not necessary to give them the graphics, because if I hold that trauma as a cop and I'm like, well, I remember what happened at that traffic stop, I don't want that to be me. It's real simple psychology. Like, I'm going to go in way more aggressive and way more paranoid. God knows what happens with these FBI investigators, the nightmares they have after that, and the prejudice, not prejudice, I'm not speaking on behalf of criminals, the way it alters their ability to be rational and objective in the moment or whilst they're working a case. That's what we should be going for. Reason, objectivity, science, not emotional charged graphic reaction creating spectacle.
Because
That's
when you load the training like that, the template when you go into confrontational interactions has that subconscious trauma painted all over the situation. Dude, as you were mentioning these videos, like, I've seen some really fucked up shit at way too young just because I was browsing the internet. And I'm actually kind of nauseous right now just reflecting on some of the shit that I saw. Could I have gone through my entire life without running into one of those videos? Yes. Would I know that murder and torture is something that's absolutely profane in every single way? Yeah, I would still know that. I really wished I did not have that morbid curiosity and somehow come across this. We all did. And, you know, we're like the first generations to really... Think about this. How much of that type of trauma do a majority of humans actually experience without the internet?
Right.
None.
Right.
Obviously, the exceptions are war-torn areas, you know, people who are brought up in some really fucked up upbringings. But a majority of people don't ever get to hear or see anything related to those things for good fucking reason.
I'd like to play the identity politics game, and I'd like to enter the Oppression Olympics. I am a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, and I was hypersexualized in multiple contexts as a child. And for the sake of raising awareness and for condemning the practice, I would say this film has no value. Okay. Zero value. Okay. That's not... So speaking as speaking in the Oppression Olympics, for me... that's got no, like, from my point of view, I'd be like, okay, what do you think about that in terms of your experiences? I'd be like, I would be worried that would tune people into something that they otherwise wouldn't have done, or that it would normalize it, and they'd be like, maybe some people would make a choice where they go, they want to enjoy the material, but they don't want to commit the act. Maybe this normalizes it, and they'll go, well, you know, maybe I'll go beyond the material and start to push that boundary more. Because if it's out there and it's being done, and that's normalization. You know, a casting of 500 to 600 kids performing what are almost sex acts, that's normalization. That is what would, if I go into my victim, you know, speaking as a mode, that's what I think.
One I think in the discussion that I watched, one particularly interesting point is that because of this outrage in film, we're actually having the discussion to it the furthest extent that we've had in a really, really long time. So I don't know if you can consider that a benefit of a situation like this, but it does go to say we are all actually having the discussion, and we're trying to talk about how terrible a situation like this as a result of a film like this. But it still doesn't need to be done.
Yeah, there's no benefit. There's no benefit. I think the only benefit in this is if we start to have a conversation about, okay, let's start resetting the boundaries, man. Let's just agree as a group of sane adults that we don't want material like this out there on, you know, I'm not saying it belongs anywhere, but it shouldn't be on Netflix.
No, definitely
it shouldn't be on the BBC. It shouldn't be on Sky. It shouldn't be on a mainstream platform. Shouldn't be anywhere. But the fact that it's on a mainstream platform is really, that's a problem, man. That's a really big society-wide cultural problem.
Then you have the advertising approach with the posters from Netflix. You know the differences between the two. If you guys don't know, the Netflix poster is like actually shows the underage girls in crop tops posed very seductively or suggestively, and then the French poster was actually like almost like girls hopping and skipping,
could be anything,
throwing presents around or whatever.
Yeah, it could be. I saw it on Abra and Preach.
So I actually think that it's almost worse, the original poster. Because the original poster shows what seems to be an innocent coming-of-age story between girls.
Right.
And imagine if you saw that poster and you thought, oh, this could be a fun thing to show my kid. Then you go into the film from the misleading poster, and then that gets slammed.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. At least the graphic poster warns you that this is fucking demented, perverted
They're
nonsense.
both terrible. I hate the Netflix poster. I hate the original poster.
Yeah.
But either route you take with it, it all points to the material in the film is really something that no one should absorb.
Yeah. There really needs to be a re-establishment of proper boundaries, and I don't mean repressing the conversation, pretending it doesn't exist. It's out there. It's always been there. I mean, there's been different times in human culture where it wasn't illegal. Maybe we need to remind people, like, why is it illegal? Why is this a problem? You know, it's because it's not good for the kids who are involved. It's not good for the adults who are involved. It's not good for society. Maybe we need to reset and just go, well, why don't we do this? Have we forgotten? Obviously, we progressed through time and we were like, oh yeah, marrying off 13-year-old girls with probably not a good idea. Maybe we should protect them. Maybe we should say we should have things like age of consent, and we should have cultural norms that mean you don't. Maybe we need to start again and just be like, okay, boys and girls, this is why we're not doing this. This is why it's not a good thing to do, because this is who it hurts. This is the consequence of it. Maybe we forgot.
Yes. So with that there, I will say, okay, we are having the discussion finally, and now we're finally discussing reestablishing the boundaries, stuff like this, as a result of this film being made. But it does not mean that it absolves the film from being made. It still shouldn't have been made. It's still bad. I don't think it ended up being terrible, whether it's intentional or not, in every way. Sure, the benefit is we do talk about it, but it doesn't mean that that's a good thing that film was made still.
Yeah, and I would extend that across multiple dimensions. When there was a spate of torture porn movies like Saw, Hostel, Human Centipede, this is going back to 2010, 2012, when I had the self-defense channel, from that platform with my 30,000 subscribers or whatever, I would rail against these movies because what I was saying is you don't want to titillate these tastes in people. We all have it. There's a sadist that we're all Roman, decadents who want to watch people being tortured to death. Or there's a part of us that's there. You don't feed that in a civilized culture. And my thing was like, don't rate this stuff. Just say no. There's also movies on Netflix. So you have torture, you have paedophilia, then you have graphic sex. There's a movie on Netflix, I think it's called Love. It's another French film. It's extraordinarily boring. But it was controversial because it features actual penetrative sex. Real sex, like the actor acted. I always remember thinking at the time, I don't consider myself a prude at all. I'm not. You fucking know I'm not. But do you need that in a mainstream movie? Can't you just simulate it like we always have to? Why do we have to have the graphic penetration?
I was actually even thinking right before you said that, like when there is sex scenes in films and stuff, most of it just hints at it. You know, maybe some are a bit more intense than others, but generally they don't actually show it happening because it gets the point.
Yeah.
I mean, we all get the point of what's happening.
And then the plot moves forward.
And the plot moves forward.
These characters had sex, which means X, Y, Z. Okay,
no,
thank you.
Okay, no. Even so, imagine you have a film that has consenting adults, and it's not within the context of children, whatever, and they're just grown adults in a love story. But what if that sex scene goes on for too long? You'd be like, what the fuck? I don't want to see this. This is taking me out of the plot.
It often does.
And it often does.
You're often sat there for going, there's probably a good 15 to 20 seconds here that, especially, it's a slightly different point, this. It's actually bad art, I think.
Yeah, it is.
Because in the age of pornography, you're seen with the curtains billowing in the background with two actors clearly faking sex, gliding over each other. The glide move. 5 seconds of that is easily enough. It's like It's like, we all know, it's like theatre. And now they had sex. Okay, got it, thank you.
Yes.
You don't need 15,
often,
30 seconds.
They do go on for way too goddamn long.
Too long.
But again, it's another thing. We get the fucking point. You don't need to show all of that to make your point heard.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
But that's not an indecency issue. That's a redundancy issue. So that's a different.
Yeah, that is different.
It's a different thing, but it's bad art. It's boring.
Yeah.
Boring as, and especially if you're watching it with your mum. Fucking hell. How many sex scenes? Everyone sat through sex scenes with their parents, going, "Jesus, this is lasting."
Okay, so instead, just watch Cuties with your parents.
Wowie.
Just watch that film with your parents. Then that way you can finally have your opinion on it.
Let's just cut that.
Just leave it out of context.
Have that clip. Yeah, you can only have an opinion on Cuties if you sit and watch it with your parents.
Yeah, why not? You can't talk about child sexualization unless you watch this entire film, and you have to talk about this with your family and your growing daughters, your underage daughters. Yeah. The only way you can have an opinion on this is if you watch the entire film with them. So there you go. Do it. See how you feel.
I realised how very conservative I've sounded for the last
dude. Honestly, I am seeing more of these elements in my life too, where I'm like, fuck, do I sound like just like goddamn like gun-toting, flag-waving dude? Yeah. But like
we're both like going right to the right.
Let's just start leading this. Fuck, man. But this is not a political issue to me, man.
It's a moral issue, right?
This is like standard morality.
Do we even have to say, hello world, do we even have to say that making a film where an 11-year-old is grabbing her private parts from behind in a sexualized context, are they being watched by adults in the film, or are they being watched by other kids? When they do the dance scene at the end?
By adults. And kids. Oh, everyone. But the rating is MA too.
What's
TV MA, which is like 15, 18 plus. It's like really? Mature audiences
only. It's mature audiences only. That's interesting. So then the people doing the ratings knew that it was rough.
Yeah.
That's weird. No, that's fucking weird. Name another film where it's got an 18 rating. Where there's is there even a film where 11-year-olds murder people? I can't think of one.
I think there's this film. It's based in Brazil, like Rio de Janeiro or something.
Oh, they're like favela kids who.
Yeah. There's
that rings a bell.
There's
that
that.
Rings a bell.
I don't know, man.
But it's that's really interesting that it's actually got. So they know then that it's bad, but they still okay. Well, that's interesting. It adds another layer of nuance.
In the end, Netflix kind of won because the point was to start this controversy, and they're making people say, watch the whole film before you make an opinion, so more people are going to watch it because their whole fucking marketing strategy actually played out.
I don't know if it's true. I just saw it on Instagram. It was a meme, and it said that their stocks plummeted.
Yeah, I'm sure. There's a whole cancel Netflix hashtag going around too. Top of that.
There must have been a meeting where they sit there and they go, this will generate so much controversy, it's worth it. Ooh, yeah, maybe you'll learn your lesson.
Yeah, they fucking overstepped hard. But again, the people that defend the film are a pretty small minority, man. But people from all over the spectrum are like, dude, what the fuck you all doing? Like, this is disgusting, man. And look, we have to almost reiterate. We're not conservative like fucking prudes, man. We're fucking raunchy, I have
super fucking liberal.
Yeah, I have no problem with the Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion WAP thing, dude. When it comes to censoring or pushing this type of content away, I'm like, no, these are grown adults, and grown adults are gonna fucking take it. Dude.
You have two decadent libertines living in Prague going, hey.
I know.
Stop that.
Yeah, exactly. Look at me, dude. I'm like, fucking rock and roll, express yourself, do whatever the fuck you want. But then
we're both like, hey.
Yeah, but what do you, no.
Get the finger out, start wagging it. That's that's got to be a hard bounding no.
Yeah.
So it's not left versus right. It's not liberal versus conservative. This almost sounds like you know more about it than me. If most people don't like it, that's population versus establishment.
Again, yeah. Again. That's right. Yeah.
Which is. I wish we all gave ourselves the time to think these things through, because the whole thing with George Floyd, I really feel like that's what that was, but it got racialized, and it really wasn't, because nobody said it was, or very few people were like, no, that was justified killing. The overwhelming majority, the population, were like, that's terrible. That we all roundly condemn that.
Yeah.
And it's like, so how do we divide? If we're going to battle, we need to know who our army is and who the enemy is. Because if we confuse that, we'll start attacking our allies. We'll start, these are they're soldiers from another country, but you can work together against the real enemies. Maybe that's what we all need to start doing.
Well, that brings up a whole other discussion, but perhaps if you take the conspiracy route, this is just another part of the agenda to divide us all. And really, we're actually being more aware of the things that do tie us together, which is really hard moral boundaries at times that we can all agree on. In this case, it's child abuse.
Yeah, it'll bring Muslims, Christians, Buddhists, Jews, black, white, Asian. Everybody's like, we all have kids. We don't want that in the environment.
So you ready to have a Cuties Netflix watch party before we make our opinion?
It's got my opinion, man. Fuck. No. There's definitely... There is no justifiable argument say you have to watch a snuff movie to know that a snuff movie is bad.
I just want to drive that point home for people that are using that. Imagine us two. We a few shots in, got the Captain Morgan and gin, and we're just chilling in this hotel room. We put that film on. How do you feel? Just that initial gut reaction of what you're experiencing right now.
Yeah.
How would you feel?
Well, imagine the cleaners come in.
Yeah.
And they're like, what are you guys watching? What are you watching? And we'd be like, we just sit here and let them come in, and there's fucking little girls on the screen twerking.
Yeah. And then we'd be like, we're just trying to get an opinion.
What? Yeah, they'd be like, why are you doing that? Opinion.
Yeah.
Must has opinion. We have to, for the internet's told
Okay,
us.
also to preface this, how often do you look through data and rewatch any type of content before you make any criticism? You are fucking militant with that type of shit. Like, you go out of your way for hours reading articles, actual DSM shit, stuff I can't even understand. You watch content before you ever say something. So for you to say that you don't need to watch this says a lot, man.
No, it's not. It's a totally redundant, totally specious. That's a specious argument. If you applied that. The problem nowadays is people don't think critically. They think short term because we've all got ADHD. Our IQ points are dropping year on year. Our attention span is dropping year on year because of social media usage. It's not that we can't think, it's that we don't think long enough. We just want to sit and just think. Just have a think. Drink a coffee, listen to the birds, and just think. Give it an hour or so before you draw your conclusion, because when you follow the logic through, you'll see a lot of things don't make sense. You can't have an opinion. You could say that about anything. You literally can't have an opinion about anything unless you've subjectively experienced more of it. No, false. Completely false. That's, I can know that something is wrong without actually being involved in it myself. I mean, because take that all the way through. How do you know that paedophilia is wrong unless you've consumed paedophilic material? No, I think, or whatever, how do you know racism is wrong? The only way you can know racism, a racist murder is wrong is after you've committed one. Otherwise, you're not permitted to have a fucking opinion. Fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here.
And that's ultimately the conclusion, man. Here's the thing, man. If you want to enjoy someone eating fire eaters, you got to do it first.
Right.
So before we go to a circus, you're going to try every single stunt.
Every single stunt.
You're going to walk on a tightrope. You're going to
all of it.
Juggling knives.
Who are you to sit there in the audience saying, my opinion is this is good? Fuck you. Get on the fucking high wire first.
One last thing before we close. Isn't it funny how you have to watch the whole thing first to prove your opinion if it's negative? So if you approve of it, then you don't need to do it.
No, you don't need to do anything. You just go, that you're okay.
But if you have criticism, then you have to go through the whole thing.
Right. So it's a classic case of it's a specious argument seems plausible, but then when you unravel the logic of it, it's a logic that only goes to here and not to here, and it doesn't. It's not reflexive. You've got to go, well, if it works that way, if it's logical, it should work symmetrically the other way as well. Otherwise, it's not logical. It's not a proper argument.
It's called pushing an agenda.
Pushing an agenda, baby. Pure propaganda.
Well, I'm not glad we had that discussion.
That was tough.
Yeah, it is what it is, man. So I can't wait to have this watch party with y'all. Who wants to come? He's blowing a mega horn. Cuties watch party. We're going to make an opinion. Yeah, I can't even fucking know. Anyways, thanks for joining the Tentacle Croissant with YouTuber over here, psychology specialist over here, Richard Grannon, and Pierre XO. See you guys soon.
Cheers.
Yeah. Oh shit. The awkward gotta close out but can't do it. Bye.